guys, so that Disney girl is back, and this week we are going to finish cracking the biggest Disney secret that has ever been told. Welcome to part 2 of Disney's Secret Society of Explorers and Adventurers. Now, before we get into this week's content, let's see where we stopped last week.
This next member started out as just a portrait, but that explorer has now spread itself across all of the lands in Disney. I'm also going to give this next explorer the credit of opening and discovering an entire Disney theme park. The explorer we're going to be talking about is
Mary Oceaneer. Wait! If you haven't heard part 1 of this riveting Disney secret story, you need to head back and start at the beginning so you can understand everything as a whole. If you want to go to part 1, go check the link in my bio. But if you have seen part 1, let's continue. Mary Oceaneer is a hugely prominent character in the Disney Sea. We see photos of her in Hong Kong, Magic Kingdom, Tokyo. The list seriously goes on and on. But Mary Oceaneer's main Disney spots are actually all the Disney waterways. So if you've ever been on a cruise, you probably know that one of the main kid spots that people go to are the Oceaneer Club. Now, the Oceaneer Club is obviously named after Mary Oceaneer, and although this is a fun place for kids to hang out, if anyone who loves the Disney Sea happens to wander in there, they can check out lots of memorabilia, photos, letters, lots of Easter eggs that have to do with the Disney Sea, and it's something definitely worth checking out. But most importantly, with this piece of the Disney Sea being on a cruise ship, this means that the Disney Sea has touched literally every part of the globe that connects to water. But Mary is seriously super cool. She's an oceanographer, she's a captain, she's a treasure hunter, she even has a parrot named Salty, aka Duncan, which by the way she found on Castaway Cay. No big deal, probably discovered that island too. And like we mentioned, Mary is a prime example of a face popping up in Mystic Manor before she actually was introduced with a backstory that connected to the Disney parks and attractions. So it's also proof that a lot of these other portraits that are hanging in Mystic Manor that have faces that aren't connected to anything yet will most likely connect to something in the near future. Seriously, I think that this guy is actually 100% connected to Mount Everest, but I guess we will have to wait and see. Back to Mary. So like I mentioned, I definitely think she was a pirate. I mean, the parrot definitely adds to that aesthetic, and I could totally have seen her, crossing paths with Jack Sparrow when she was on one of her treasure hunts. And I mean, let's think about it. Jack Sparrow could totally be a member of the Disney Sea. He was definitely an explorer, and if someone as sketchy as Harrison Hightower III can be a member, I think that we can give Jack Sparrow a break. I don't know, that's just my thoughts. I think that Mary's biggest discovery, which is even bigger than the Oceaneer Club, is Typhoon Lagoon. So here's the story. Mary was actually sailing on one of her adventures when she got caught up in a typhoon and ended up on an island. When you're at Typhoon Lagoon, you see a huge ship that's cracked right on top of a mountain, and it's most likely Mary's ship. Misadventure Falls, one of the very popular water attractions at this park, is actually something that resembles the outcome of Mary Oceaneer's discovery and her time on this island. Through this attraction, we can see the results of the typhoon, but we can also see that there are like lawn chairs and places for people to relax and sit down. This definitely means that Mary discovered this island, but set things up for guests to come and visit. Right outside at the front of the attraction, we can see this huge heavyweight that Mary would have used to dock some of her ships. Written on this heavyweight is Atlantean writing. Now let's think about it. What kind of Disneyland would be under the sea with Atlantean writing? Nothing other than the lost city of Atlantis, I think. No big deal, Mary, but she just discovers treasure, an entire island, and then, oh yeah, a lost city. So the writing on this heavyweight is the only thing that we have that connects Atlantis to the Disney Sea. But I wanted to see, is there something more? Do we have more proof? If we head on over to the UK Pavilion at Epcot in the Little Kitty Station, we can see that there's a Disney Sea book, and right next to that book is a photo of Atlantis. Now, I know this doesn't discreetly say that the two are connected, but I think by having them side by side, Disney's definitely dropping us a little Easter egg that I'm gonna read a lot more into. Now, I'm thinking back to the Adventure Club in Pleasure Island. One of the characters that I could definitely see getting along with Mary was Otis. Now, Otis loved the ocean. Studying things in the ocean was his job, and he definitely could have been something that inspired the creation of Mary Oceaneer. So our next Disney Sea story starts with Dr. Albert Falls, as in Schweitzer Falls, as in the backside of water! No. So Albert actually founded the Jungle Navigation Company, and he had a daughter named Alberta Falls. I know it's not that creative for Disney, but we're just gonna roll with it. So Alberta's father was a professor, but he noticed that his daughter Alberta really loved to explore, and he knew that if he brought her along to all of his lecture tours over one summer, that she wasn't gonna have too much fun. He decided to send her off with her grandfather that summer where she could explore the jungle. Alberta was a true explorer at heart, and when sadly Albert passed away, Alberta took over the Jungle Navigation Company and started directing tours in 1931. But the jokes that you hear on the Jungle Cruises are definitely something that Albert would have instilled. He was a true comedian, and he really put this quality into all of his skippers. And speaking of skippers, we've already kind of discussed this, but Skipper Canteen is definitely a part of the Disney Sea. As we've been going through these videos, I think you can sort of start to tell that in every park, there's definitely a meeting place in the form of a restaurant where Disney Sea members could hang out and talk about their discoveries and upcoming adventures. For example, over in Disneyland, Bengal Barbecue is definitely one of their outposts, and there's a really fun Easter egg here that I'm going to quickly touch on. Plus, it connects Katharine Hepburn and Henry Bogart to the Disney Sea, so I think that's pretty cool. There's actually a still in this restaurant from the hit feature, The African Queen. Now in this photo, we can see Albert, Henry Mystic's pet monkey, riding on the boat. If you look really closely, you can see a photo of Albert Falls on a bench. And in the back, we can see the infamous tree climbing scene from the Jungle Cruise. Plus, on the top of the cruise boat, we can see Zambezi Miss, which is one of the cruise boat's names in the Jungle Cruise attraction. This, of course, is a nod to the film which inspired the attraction. And if we want to go even further into this backstory, the photo of Albert Falls kind of could tell a story that these two were searching for Albert Falls. Because remember, although we think Albert Falls passed away, what actually happened was he never returned to his outpost, and he's technically been missing, not dead. Who knows, maybe one day he'll pop back up again. So the Jungle Cruise actually has a dark side, and it attaches one of the only members to have ever been kicked out of the Disney Sea. In Hong Kong Disneyland, they have an overlay during Halloween called Curse of the Emerald Trinity. If you're thinking that this sounds a lot like an Indiana Jones film, we'll get back to that soon. But continuing on. So on this attraction, you're not just accompanied by a skipper, but also a navigator, and you are on the way to catch Professor Garrett Reed. Now, Garrett Reed has ended up in the Temple of Immortality, and he's trying to catch one of the tree stones. So the point is, if you successfully steal a stone and get out of the temple, then you achieve immortality. But it's pretty hard to get out of the temple when you get that stone, and if you don't make it out, you just won't make it out. So to me, this sounds a lot like the same story that we heard from Harrison Hightower, and these stones remind me a lot of the Shirikyu Tendu. I mean, who knows, maybe these relics are actually connected in some sort of way, possibly still belonging to the Matundu tribe. It's definitely plausible since the Jungle Cruise connected all of the rivers in the jungle. So in this case, not only do we make it out alive, but so does Professor Garrett, and Lord Henry Mystic shuns him from the Disney Sea. And when we're talking about connections of the Adventurer Club to the Jungle Cruise attraction, there actually are a few. Right by one of the Fast Pass stations, there used to be a few luggages with these name tags on it. One had Emil's address on it, which was one of the Junior Adventurer Boy Scouts in the show. And one had Club President Pamela Perkins. We've covered boats, but what about trains? So in the 2013 refurbishment of Big Thunder Mountain, suddenly there was a photo of a man named Barnabas T. Bullion hung up on the wall. Everyone started to think, who is this guy and how does he connect to this Disney attraction? Barnabas actually ran a mining company here at Big Thunder Mountain, and his goal was to dig up gold. Legend has it that Big Thunder Mountain was actually very protective of its gold and didn't like it when people tried to dig too deep. It's almost as if when we ride the attraction we are employed by Barnabas, and when we dig a little too deep, the mine starts to cave on us and we barely escape with our lives. Something really interesting here is that almost every story that we have told that connects to the Disney Sea also connects to something supernatural. The characters in the story are usually barely escaping with their lives. Barnabas actually has a daughter named Abigail, and I'm gonna really stretch out on a limb here and see if I can connect her to Ariel. On the Disney Wiki page, this is the description of Abigail. Abigail Bullion is the protagonist of the Disney Kingdom's title Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. The daughter of Barnabas T. Bullion, she seeks adventure instead of being trapped in the role of the proper young lady she's expected to be. She also has red hair that flows like crazy, and her main goal is to seek adventure just like Ariel did. And when we think about Ariel, Ariel totally could have been a member of the Disney Sea. Ariel had her little cove where she kept all of her trinkets and goods, and she definitely would allow anyone in the ocean to stop by and see what she's collected from the human world. And who knows, maybe Mary Oceaneer met her on one of her travels one day and inducted her into the society. So the Bullions aren't the only two Disney Sea members that are connected to Big Thunder Mountain. Another person was Jason Chandler. Now, Jason was created in the 1970s by Imagineer Tony Baxter in the attempt for a project to really do a huge expansion in Disneyland entitled Discovery Bay. Discovery Bay is a video for a totally different time, but in a quick nutshell, what it was meant to be was all of the money that was obtained through Big Thunder Mountain, instead of spending all of this money in Western saloons, the idea was that they went out into California and used their technology to create this like explorer mecca, and it was actually going to have a steampunk sort of vibe. And of course, this never actually came to be, but in the story of the Disney Sea, this definitely could have been a place that the group would have founded, met at, and grown over time. Now, the 1992 Disney News edition described the backstory for Big Thunder Mountain in this way. The highly imaginative tale includes the legend of a young inventor named Jason Chandler who lived in a town called International Village during the peak gold rush years in the Big Thunder region, circa 1849. According to the chronicles, the young inventor devised a drilling machine with the capability of boring into the heart of Big Thunder Mountain. There, the veins of gold ran so deep, it was rumored that they could produce a mother lode that would bring a man enough wealth to last 100 lifetimes and more. So during one of Bullion's mining excursions, there was a huge earthquake that trapped 26 men, and it was actually Chandler's device that freed them. But when he freed them, this should have been a really exciting moment, but there was actually another huge earthquake that swallowed the inventor, Jason Chandler, and his machine as a whole. And since that day, Big Thunder Mountain has also not even produced a little sliver of a gold nugget. So then the mountain just became bust, and it was only a matter of time before ghosts started to reside there. Now, if you watched last week's video, don't you think that this is totally a place that Master Gracie, obsessor of the supernatural, would have loved to visit? As it turns out, Chandler actually survived the incident. And he decided that with all of this gold that he's acquired throughout the years, he wasn't going to use it for his own personal wealth, but he was actually going to use it to give financial aid to inventors all over the globe. What he did was establish a scientific outpost entitled Discovery Bay in California. And I also want to kind of point out that Jason's drilling machine sounds a lot like the same machine that would have been used for Journey to the Center of the Earth. And although the invention was squabbled up by the earthquake, I think that it is definitely plausible that it was recreated by Jason and used for exploration instead of exploitation. I also think that it's really interesting that Imagineer Tony Baxter was creating Big Thunder Mountain at the same time that he was creating Discovery Bay. And the only character in this Disney Sea story that has a hand in both attraction is Jason Chandler. I think that Tony Baxter could definitely be a reimagined version of Jason Chandler. Now we're gonna jump out of the Disney parks into the last part of our story and figure out how Disney Springs came to be. Now, if you've ever been to the Hangar Bar in Disney Springs, you know that it was founded by Jock Lindsey. Now, Jock Lindsey was actually a freelance pilot who was hired by Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And yes, that's right folks, I just said that Indiana Jones had hired a member of the Disney Sea, therefore connecting Indiana Jones to the Disney Sea and possibly making him a member of it. When Dr. Jones was searching for the fabled Fountain of Youth in Central Florida in 1938, he actually found Disney Springs. He really loved the area and he decided to settle down there, create this whole bar that his friends could come visit and enjoy. Today we know it as Jock Lindsey's Hangar Bar, but to the society they just see it as another place where they can get together. By including Indiana Jones into this tale of the Disney Sea, what Disney has started to do is break through their stories of fictionalized characters in the parks into the fictionalized characters in their movies. I think that over time, as Disney starts to expand these characters' universes, we aren't going to really see the difference between a park character and a cinematic character. I mean, think about it. The Jungle Cruise is a movie that is about to come out, and although the character names that have been released don't really match the tales that we've heard, this is the movie plot that we have. Set in the 1930s during a Great Depression, a riverboat captain named Frank takes a scientist and her brother on a mission into a jungle to find a tree believed to possess healing powers. And now let's think back to the overlay that happens in Hong Kong Disney's Jungle Cruise. I mean, there are these powerful crystals that are stuck inside of a tree that give you immortal life, which kind of sounds like they could definitely be a healing crystal to me. Now, I'm not saying at all that this attraction story and the movie story are going to be, frame for frame what happens, but I definitely think that the story of the attraction could have inspired the story that we are going to see on the big screen. The film could be taking a piece of the Disney Sea and expanding it with new characters, aka possibly new members of the Disney Sea that we could see inside of the parks as time goes on. And if we go back to my theory about the Adventurer Club and members in that club, which, kind of sparked this whole Disney Sea initiative, I definitely think that Hathaway Brown would have loved Jock Lindsay's hangar bar, and also Jock Lindsay as an aviator is definitely someone that could have inspired the character and creation of Jock Lindsay. So that is it. That is all my knowledge on Disney's Society of Explorers and Adventurers. I think that the backstories of all Disney characters are so cool, and if you have any more information that I may have missed or any opinions on this story, please comment them down below. And of course, if you want some more Disney fics and knowledge, all you have to do is subscribe to my channel and make sure that you have that notifications button on so that you can see every time I post a video. And lastly, if you enjoyed the stories I've been telling, I would love it if you can give this video a like. Until next time, I will see you real soon. Bye!